So while I have a question that involves Zoe as well, I wonder, does anybody want to start with a question from the audience for my panel? No? Nobody's got a question? Yes.
Sorry. How long can you leave blue cheese without, well, I suppose without eating it? Should you eat blue cheese by the expiry date or the best before date?
John.
Because I got sick after it when I eat it. Well, the best before date was probably a week prior to when I eat it.
I doubt if it was the cheese that made you sick. One thing, unless it was an allergic reaction or you were sick at the time. One thing about, I was on the board of the food safety for about 5 years, poacher turned gamekeeper, if there ever was one. When you get food poisoning, it's usually 48 to 72 hours after you consumed a piece of food that was contaminated by bacterial infection. It takes that long to manifest itself in your gut. So when we get sick in the morning, we go, oh, I must have been the kebab last night. But if it's an actual food poisoning, it's something you ate 3 days ago, not something that you got sick a couple of hours from, which is always an interesting way of looking at. 90% of food poisoning is a viral, airborne virus like the norovirus. So, but with regards, how long it depends on the moisture content.
And how stinky you want your fridge to be as well.
Yeah, but when I have blue cheese, I just kind of bring it home and eat it. If I had, one of the first, before I ever was a cheesemonger, I used to make Stilton and leek and potato and Stilton soup. So, I keep a bit in the fridge for that, and it was fine for soups. Same with gnocchi and gorgonzola. I could keep it there for weeks, and because I'm saucing up with it, it's fine.
And if you're worried about it, you can always cook with it. One of the recipes in the book is inspired by my food god, Yotam Ottolenghi. We're in the same county. I'm so, I'm sorry, I'm a big fangirl, but...
You're probably in the same room.
There's more to life than parsley and lemons now, come on.
I'm very thrown myself at his feet 2 years ago. I think he's taking a borrowing order against me. Anyway, we combined blue cheese with tahini, and you make it into a kind of spreadable. So you can cook with blue cheese. People think you should eat it raw, but you can make wonderful sauces with it. Add it to a milk sauce to make a really tasty.
I had a 120-year-old piece of cheese over in Italy. Some Elfla, Grandad died, and they just boarded up the room, and that was it. And
was the Grandad still in the room?
No, Grandad was dead. And when they opened the room, it's like those National Trust houses you see in, like the house for sale in Cork at the moment, or you find them sometimes in England that nobody's disturbed them for, and they become National Trust monuments because you can get that perfect time capsule. But anyway, there's a piece of Parmesan there, and I was lucky enough to be able to taste it over in Italy, and it was fine. So 120 years old. Grant.
Actually, my rule, if I'm in a supermarket, which is not too often, but if I am looking to buy some cheese in a supermarket, I should be thrown out because I'll keep going through the rack until I get the oldest one. So I actually will only buy a cheese when it's right at its sell-by. Buying it before that, you're buying, especially the way supermarkets handle cheese, it's not a problem in Sheridan's, but the aim to get the best cheese in a supermarket scenario is just keep turning them around. I used to stock shelves of supermarkets, and I would hate me, but that's what I do. I will not buy it unless I can get the oldest one. So I go through them all, but I'm obviously somewhat strange in that regard.
I know I'm hogging the mic, but I divide into three. There's 3 types of cheeses. I have, beside my cooker, I have a cheese grater, and I have a bit of sheep's cheese. Like I can shoplift, so I have Parmesan, sheep's cheese, and I use that for cooking. So I use it on top of pastas, on top of roast potatoes with the kids. Then I have little kids, and I have ordinary cheese, which is my Killeen goat's cheese or Maryland cheddar. And that's 95% of the cheese I consume is just ordinary cheddar and cooking cheese, grating cheese. And if I've mates around or I'm doing a Sunday lunch, that's when I get the fancy stuff out. But I would very rarely have in my house a gastronomic cheese, as in cheese board after dinner cheese. There's 3 different types of cheese. There's adult Jesus, what's that cheese? There is toasted cheese sandwich, ordinary cheese, and then I divide into 3 separate areas. So, if you're buying Jesus, what's that cheese in the supermarket, then I agree with you, John. You try and get them a bit mad.
Could I ask Prue a question? Just
Do you know, well, I'm
when you opened, could you serve a cheese board? Were there cheeses there?
Do you know, I was absolutely convinced for years that I didn't get a Michelin star because I only served British cheese. And I was really trying to promote British cheese. Of course, it was nonsense. I wasn't getting a Michelin star because I didn't deserve it. I found that out when I finally rang them up and said, I've been 25 years trying to get the star. Where is it?
That's much easier to get them now.
I have to say,
Our son has one.
no, in defense of Michelin, they were fantastic. They sent their chief inspector and the guy who'd been inspecting us around. We sat round with my manager and the chef and me, and we talked about it. And they were, it was just such an amazing thing because they said, he brought out a big book, like that, This Is Your Life type book. And it said all the visits we'd had. And they said, well, now, about your bread. When we first came, you had the most wonderful sourdough. It was obviously made on the spot. It was absolutely perfect, fresh, warm, lovely. Next time we came, it was sort of part-baked stuff that had obviously been brought in. And what's more, it wasn't even properly baked then. And then the next time we came, we were back to really good bread. And then they said, they were talking, I was thinking, oh my God, that's when we lost the baker. That's when we thought that the pastry cook could bake bread, and she couldn't. They did the same with the French dressing. We used to have these sort of first course trolleys, which were all full of sort of Italian type antipasta things, salads. You have the same French dressing, same oil and vinegar dressing on all your salads. Why don't you have a lighter one on the seafood one and a sort of hefty one on the German, French sausages and mustard or something? And I thought, God, it is absolutely right. Why don't we? Why do we just use the same olive oil? They knew far more about my business than I did. Anyhow, we did everything we were told, and the next year we got a Michelin star.
So the question I have for Zoe and John is there is a distinct parallel between your playing, which was fantastic, and the professionalism it takes to be a top chef, which is the amount of practice you need. And I just wondered if you'd give us a quick answer to when it was you started playing together, started playing your instruments and so on.
Thank you. Well, we both started playing in general very young. John started at 8 and I started maybe at 4 or so. And then we started playing together, believe it or not, after we got married. We didn't play together before, which is really bizarre. But definitely an awful lot of dedication and an awful lot of work. So as a teenager, probably like many of the chefs, that's when I did most of my work. I would have easily done 5 hours a day, every day, for maybe 8 years or 10 years. So that's the amount of hours that you need to be in order to be a good professional player. So do you want to answer?
Yeah, and it probably to continue the allegory. The love for music is probably equally important, that one has a love for music the same as a chef must have a love for food. That's the main thing that makes us musicians or chefs, is this love. But I think we probably have we have a love for food also. It's great to be here, actually.
John, can I ask you then, I mean, in terms of being professional musicians, I mean, this Malcolm Gladwell idea that behind every person who is extraordinary at their given or chosen art form, there's 10,000 hours. If you're talking about 5 hours a day, 7 days, you've done the 10,000 hours, haven't you?
At least.
Yeah. I would say we easily. Yeah.
And counting.
Yes. This is it. I mean, it's completely a learning. It's always it's like as you are in your profession, continually learning, continually growing, continually exchanging, sharing and exploring new ideas, and it's the same for anything. I often say this to my students. I know it's just it's all about the love. You have to have the love for what you want to do, and no matter what you want to do, if you have the love for it, you're willing to expend that amount of energy, in your chosen field, that it's for you. And you will have, no doubt, all the success that you want.
Lovely.
Are there any more questions? Yes?
Sorry, this is a very selfish concern more than a question. Do you think that Anna Levesque will ever start making her delicious Triskel cheeses again?
I'd love if she did.
To answer that question, there's just two things. Okay, I remember Drina came up, myself, Toby and Frank Heather, when we opened the Temple Bar Food Market. I remember getting arrested in Kilkenny, opening a market there. So that's kind of in the 90s. Back when I was talking about our culture and our hurling and our GA and how we define ourselves like through music, and that's who we are as Irish people. We don't have that association with secondary food production. But we don't, and like Anna Levesque with that fresh cheese needs markets. Now, say if you take Gubin or Durras, like a mini Gubin or a mini Durras, like you can buy it down in Skib for 6-7 quid. It's such an amazing piece of food. If 1 in 10 houses in Cork bought a Gubin every 2 weeks, we wouldn't even get any in Sheridan's. Yet they rely on 60-70% export. So it's very difficult in a population of Ireland with just 4 million to specialise, and also a population that's very adverse to food. So it's very difficult to encourage somebody to do some rare pigs or something. If you were in the Cotswolds, you'd have 1,000 bloody gastropubs knocking on your door trying to get your food. But here it's very difficult to become a secondary producer and to find the market internally. It's like Scotland, Ireland, so it's a thankless task.
I mean, Anna was making cheese 7 days a week. She was milking her goats, making a cheese, and coming away with probably about €100 a week. She and her partner were both farming, and they took that decision, having a second child as well, that her time and energy was better put into his farming and helping out on that side. Yeah. She's a born cheesemaker, and I hope at some point she might return to it. But I was at a thing recently about community-supported agriculture, and again, we have a Department of Agriculture in this country, but it is a Department of agribusiness. They're very proud of putting the artisan cheeses on a platter when they're, on a trade mission in New York. But actually, their support and their hearts are with the big producers and processors who are exporting food. So our food, the richness of what we produce on this beautiful island, is being exported, and that's where the resources are. But I was talking to Philip Boucher-Hayes about this for his program, What Are You Eating? And talking about that idea of thousands of producers, millions of consumers, and they're meeting in this tiny funnel of 5 enormously powerful supermarkets. And the way to expand that hourglass is for people to meet, so those consumers to meet those producers directly and to buy from them directly. Now that's happening, and it is happening much more even in the last 5 or 10 years in Ireland. But a community support, and I'm thinking, we need to have restaurant-supported agriculture as well. So you have a restaurant who will, with a farm, devise what it is that they're going to produce. Now I know this is a kind of a dream scenario, and we had Katie Sanderson this morning talking about Dillisk, which they go to Connemara, and it's almost like a recharge, it's almost like a retreat for restaurateurs, and they just forage and find what they can and cook it for 2 weeks. And part of me thinks, I love that, it's so picturesque, it's so beautiful, but why can't we do that in the real world?
It's not a business, Catherine. And back to what Prue said, the most amazing thing when she was talking, she said about doing the accounts and getting the balance sheet right. If you're in France and you've got a goat farm, you can lift 250 quid cash on 3 markets a week. That's 750 plus your grants, plus your rep scheme. Bang, fresh goat's cheese. You don't want to sell it to Sheridan, you don't even bother. You just have a market, you take cash. And this is happening in every town. It's the same with your eggs, same with your salamis. So you have a whole subculture of people just making cash by producing on farms. We have the lowest direct sales from farms of anywhere in Europe by a multiple of 100. It's less than 1% of our sales, where in places across Europe, it's 25% of farm incomes come from direct sales. So we're very corporatized in our supply chain. But I'd love if Anna came up with it'll take years for us to support that type of agriculture.
Well, on that note, I'd like to thank my distinguished panel very much. Thank you, the audience, and good evening.
Hooray.